Now let's spark this place.
Music and sports, it's all the same. Making a name for yourself to get in the game. You going hard in the paint, you're doing your thing. Keeping the crowd entertained while growing your fame. From the streets to the league, overseas. Wherever your talent takes you for the trophies. When you come into the system, just by all in. Going hard to the goal and put the ball in. Man, ball.
Yo, this is Trav with Trav's Mad Ballin's 5th episode. You heard it right. The 5th episode of Trav's Mad Ballin is at you right now. But before I get to the show, let me introduce my co-host, Scott the G.
What up, Trav? What's going on?
What's up with this delay? It's like a kung fu movie. I'm saying one thing, you kind of sitting there, and there's like nothing, like dead air. But anyways,
do you want something to eat?
There's a lot to talk about this time around. And of course, Klay Thompson is at the top of the list. We have a bunch of things to get into this half hour of basketball talk. But before we even do that, we're also simulcast, at least the day after, on YouTube. So subscribe to the channel, give us the thumbs up, leave a comment if this is the type of content you like, and we'll all be happy. So just hit us with that solid and we'll be happy for the rest of the time that we're on the air or on YouTube or on a podcast. By the way, this podcast is brought to you by as well, and you can find it on SoundCloud, Apple, and the Google Play. Google Play, Apple Store, SoundCloud, we're blowing up. So before we go any further, let's get into this topic. Get it popping right now. Klay Thompson has returned to the NBA after over 900 days away from the league, away from playing against real professional players.
He's back.
Yeah, he's back. I mean, I tell you what.
I don't think anybody got that one. Cam Newton was doing the thing from Poltergeist, I think, doing the I'm back. But yeah, it's great to see Klay back. I mean, obviously the Splash Brothers, it's a family reunion. The amazing thing to me, one of the most amazing things is this team was on fire without him. I mean, these guys are in the top of the Western Conference. They don't have James Wiseman. I think they're getting him back tonight. And they didn't have Klay Thompson until now. And so, you add these two guys to the mix and, who can compete with them in the West? Maybe the Suns. We'll see.
Well, we already saw what happened with the Suns while the Warriors were short-handed and they went to Phoenix and took care of business on Christmas Day. They're still the hands-on #1 team, even if the seeding doesn't say it right now, or even after their 2-game losing streak before Klay got back says different right now, they're still the best team in the West. And let me tell you something, it's not even just this year. They're hot this year. Last year, they weren't so hot, and we saw how it ended for them and Stephon Curry last season in the playoffs. So they could really use a Klay Thompson. And of course, let's not get it jaded. He scored 17 points. His average, as far as his field goal percentage, wasn't the same as we're known to see from him. And, he wasn't the same kind of guy. But what could you expect from someone who's been out that long?
Yeah, and I mean, who do you have in the West, too? You've got the Jazz, who are a great regular season team. They always seem to fade in the playoffs. You've got the Nuggets, who, a good team. They've got the Joker, but when does Jamal Murray come back? Maybe not until the playoffs. And I think, if they don't get him, ahead of the playoffs, it's just too much to ask them to come together in the playoffs with him. So, although they're a good team, I can't see them hanging with them. Dallas, maybe. I know that's one of the next topics we're going to get to. So, I don't know. Porzingis can't stay healthy. Luka's a superstar. They managed to put together a win the other night without Porzingis. Is that a sustainable sustainable plan going forward? I don't know. You had guys stepping up like Jalen Brunson. You had Maxi Kleber. You had this guy Josh Green. Which, can those guys do it going forward? In the past, they haven't been able to do it against the Bulls, who are a hell of a good team. They've got one of the greatest college coaches of all time. First team Mount Rushmore, obviously, Billy Donovan.
Okay, we'll get around to that eventually.
Anyway, so great game with those guys the other night. And even though the Bulls have been the dominant team in the East for a while, they won 8 or 9 games in a row. And Donovan, knew about it coming in. He said before the game, our defensive intensity has been lacking. We've got to step it up. Now, in the first half, they managed to contain Luka, and it looked like they might be able to win. But, Luka was able to get to other parts of his game in terms of rebounding and distributing the ball to where, they were able to put away the Bulls pretty handily.
Yeah, and going with Luka in this game, remember he was injured. He has the ankle injury, which is still the case right now. In fact, before the Bulls game, they didn't know whether he was going to play in that game because of that same ankle. And then COVID compounded the injuries that he's had. It kept him out of the game, and they went on a slide after that. But when he had gotten back, I believe they won 1 or 2 games before he had gotten back. Now, after handling Chicago, they're on a 9-game winning streak of their own, and Luke is a big reason why. And as you mentioned, Porzingis wasn't getting the job done. This is the same guy who complained just a while ago about not being a bona fide number 2 or even a 1A or 1B. And he gets his opportunity. He gets his opportunity. He did nothing with it. He put up points, but the wins weren't coming. There were a lot of losses, and I think while Luka was out, they were 6-6. Now Luka's back. They're on a 9-game winning streak, 7 of those games with Luka, and against a team like Chicago, which is as good as they are right now, number 1 seed, still 2 games ahead of the Nets at the moment. He gets this double-double after you said started off with a slow outing in the beginning. But at the halftime, he had, I think, 3 points away from his triple-double. I think he was 3 points also away from a triple-double rebounds and then assists and all that. And then he puts it all together, blows up in the second half. And they end up blowing out the Chicago Bulls. And now they replaced Chicago's 9-win winning streak with their own 9-win winning streak.
Yeah, and to go back to Porzingis, A, he can't do it when he's healthy. B, he can't stay healthy. So that's why I think going forward, when you look at this team, is the formula they had against the Bulls sustainable? If this guy, Josh Green, can play like he did the other night, if Kleba can, if Jalen Brunson can, then maybe it is sustainable. But to me, it kind of seems like the team they're still counting on Porzingis to be a major factor. And I don't think that's a recipe to get beyond the first round of the playoffs. So, like happened against the Bulls, this team can surprise you. Luka he's got all facets of his game, and he can use that to an extent. But I just think I can't see him making it very deep in the playoffs.
No, I don't see them making it deep. He's going to still be the face of the franchise. He has the mega contract, and his talent justifies it. By the way, as an aside, Luka they were trying to, or still trying to make him a face of the NBA. And as LeBron gets older and other players are kind of going to leave the game in the next 3, maybe 5 years, you look at his turnovers. I look at Russell Westbrook, who gets all of these issues because of his turnovers. At this moment, Luka averages more turnovers than Russ Westbrook. There have been times when he's had his 9 turnovers, 8 turnovers, 7 turnovers. And I don't think turnovers when I hear about Luka or when I watch him play. I don't think about that. And I guess because the media doesn't push the issue, or is he more likable and more accessible to the media? So they have this little love fest. We know how that works in the media. They have their little love fest with a specific player, and they'll give them a little bit more leeway than someone they may have a problem with.
If you smile for the cameras, the press tends to like that, and if you make yourself accessible. A guy like Westbrook, he's a different kind of guy, but I think he's kind of interesting because he always plays angry. It reminds me of that Groundhog Day, when Bill Murray was driving the car in the Groundhog. He's like, "Don't drive angry." Russ always drives angry, and it can be exciting to watch, and it's definitely a motivating thing. So I don't know why I guess maybe part of it is, Westbrook's been around a while and he's kind of been close to the mountaintop and he hadn't been able to get over it. So he kind of seems like yesterday's news, whereas Luka's still the fresh new story. And, he hadn't had any dust ups or anything negative yet. He seems like a very happy guy from this cool family where his mom was like a beauty queen or something like that. So there's a lot of, he's got a lot of that star power going for him. So that definitely helps with the media, helps him tell a story.
Yeah, and I think Russ, another problem with Russ is that he plays angry. He makes all of these mistakes. He's not accessible, as I talked about. You mentioned just now. But I also think that, not winning. I mean, he didn't come in from the beginning winning. I mean, he's doing well now, and he had a nice core when they all had it out there in Oklahoma City, but he's not that guy, and they hadn't gotten anywhere with all of the numbers. He started getting this label as one of these stat padding players, and we've heard that now with LeBron, which is ridiculous. I mean, you're not a stat padder when you're trying to win games and the other guys in your team aren't trying to play as hard as you are. But Russ Westbrook, he goes out there, he puts in the time, the numbers look good at the end of the night, the numbers that look gaudy, but the numbers that matter don't look the same in terms of turnovers and the scoreboard.
What looks good on Luka? Hitting those last minute shots, those buzzer beaters, 0 seconds left to win the game. That's one of those reels you can just replay over and over again. It's like, these guys are going to lose. Like if you saw that game the other night, the Raiders in San Diego,
yes,
the Chargers looked like they were dead like 10 times over. They just kept coming back. And finally, the Raiders prevailed in overtime. But that's Luka's kind of that kind of guy on a number of occasions. He hit, kind of a Reggie Miller type, that last second, buzzer beater that, defies all the odds. So that definitely, helps him win friends in high places. So
yeah, and if he stays away from the injury bug, which some players just can't help. I mean, there are certain things that just happen during the course of sports, period, not just basketball, where you're playing 82 games, running up and down a hardwood floor. Things are going to happen when you have these ultra supreme athletes out there. Injuries is going to be a big problem if only he can avoid them moving forward. And as we move forward and as we talk about injuries, Zion Williamson, another injury. Well, the same injury, but not playing with the team. He may not play this year at all for all we know. And he's over 300 pounds. I mean, he was over 300 pounds. I don't know if it's true that he's under 300 pounds. All I know is that he's not playing right now for the Pelicans. And he's also not rehabbing with the team. He's up in Portland. What's going on there?
Yeah, it's interesting. The big three on TNT were talking about this, and they really, we're talking like this is a gut check moment for him. I mean, he's got to decide, what his future is going to look like. And, I've thought all along, I mean, you love this kind of guy. I love the guy. I mean, remember he gets injured at Duke, and everybody's like, Twitter's like, sit out, get your money, son. You don't need to mess around with this. He's like, I love basketball. He comes back, he plays with Duke. They don't do that well. But I mean, he has that spirit. He gets injured his first year. Everybody's saying the same thing. Sit out, get your money. He's like, I'm gonna play. So he's a guy you really want to see succeed. But what the big three were talking about was his weight and discipline and the issues they had with it. Kenny Smith was talking about when he was in Chapel Hill. He said he showed up one of his first few days on campus, and he saw the basketball players led by Sam Perkins. They had their running shoes, their running outfit on at like 10 or 11 at night. He's like, what's going on? And you go, we're going running. And he said it wasn't anything the coach did. These guys just did it all by themselves, and they had that discipline. Kind of reminds you of like Kobe. I know I heard Jim Rome saw him out one time after dinner, 9 o'clock at night. He goes, where are you going? He goes, I'm going to lift. I mean, he has that dedication. And Barkley was talking about, his hero was Moses Malone growing up. And
yes,
obviously he had his issues with weight. And when he was playing with Moses Malone, he said, you are fat and you are lazy. And he said that was a wake-up moment for him. And that's when, he realized his weight was an issue and his future was going to be determined by what he did with it. And, he was able to have a good long career. And from the outset, I've never thought Zion was a guy who could last that long. How can you jump that high and weigh that much and be that athletic and stay healthy? It's kind of like a guy like Porzingis. How can you be 7'3" and do all that he can, stay healthy? It's not easy to do, but I think this is a gut check moment for Zion.
Yeah, a gut check, and he puts a lot into that gut. He's overweight because of it. Going into the NBA draft, we already knew in terms of being a generational player, he was that guy who was supposed to be that guy. According to Hoops Hype, it's a magazine, they put out an article about him, and 17 GMs, they were asked, out of all the young players who have been out there, who would they build a team around now? And right now, Zion came in at number 7 on the list. And the ironic part was he's only 4 slots ahead of his teammate, Brandon Ingram. I mean, that says a lot, man. And I know talent-wise, when he's healthy, he's the best player out there for his position and what he can do on the court, and he can help any team. But anytime you have to qualify anything with, if he's healthy, that means he's not healthy consistently enough to be effective in the NBA.
And I think that's their concern is, can he stay healthy? And, so far it's really been challenging for him. By the way, don't trash Brandon Ingram. I mean, he's another one of those guys that the Lakers, they waste. What's that?
I mean, he's stepped in for Zion since Zion's been out. He's stepped up his game.
Yeah, and he's another one of those talents that the Lakers wasted. And, from a Celtic point of view, I think we got to get rid of Jaylen Brown. And I want to bring in Brandon Ingram. I don't know if it's going to happen, but I'd like to see it because I think he's an excellent scorer. And he stays relatively healthy.
If you want to get into some things about, poor decisions or as far as players getting heavy like Zion and players who are ascending like Brandon Ingram, let's go back to the college game because it brings us there to the alma mater of Zion Williamson, and that is Duke. They lost to Miami a couple of days ago. I mean, they lost 76-74, a huge upset in Coach K's swan song season, as of course, he's going to retire after this year. They lost at Cameron Indoor, which is, it's insane. I think tickets are going for over $1,000 in his swan song season, but the Canes came in there undefeated in the ACC on a nice winning streak, 8-game winning streak. Now this makes it a 9-game winning streak. And they take on these Duke Blue Devils who were number 2 at the time. They beat them, and it was a great thing. But what wasn't so great, they're not even ranked right now. How can they not be in the top 25 after being undefeated in the ACC and beating the number 2 team who happens to be the team in the ACC, Duke?
Well, whoever is doing the polling is asleep at the switch. And I think we're still kind of dealing with, the beginning of the year polling. It's not completely worthless, but it's about as close as you can get, especially now with people, having such short college careers. It's almost, impossible to figure out which teams are still going to be good one season to the next. But let me get this right. This was the Hurricanes and the Blue Devils. They couldn't both lose. That would have been cool.
Taking cheap shots right there. I know one thing, they did not lose to Texas Southern, neither one of them. And I don't think it will happen anytime soon either, Mr. Gator fan. Mr. Chicago's only good because of Billy Donovan fan.
I'm an old school Duke hater. My grandfather
you're just old.
Well, that too, but my grandfather, speaking of old, my grandfather played football for Chapel Hill back when they had the leather helmets and stuff. And so I've always I've generally disliked Duke, but I mean Coach K and Grant Hill and some of the guys back in the day, it's kind of hard to really hate them anymore. But here's one thing I will hate on is that dump they call Cameron Indoor.
What a dump! What a
freaking
dump for such a prestigious school.
What's that?
I say, what a dump for such a prestigious school.
Exactly. And no one should have to play there. No one should have to play at Vanderbilt. Those are both horrible places to play. You give way too much advantage to the home team because of how screwed up they are. Now, from Duke's perspective, I get it. It's an intimidating place to play. And, there's no sidelines, so that makes it difficult. Same way at Vanderbilt, the sidelines are really at the, at beyond the end
It's
line.
an ugly stadium. It reminds me of
It's
Iowa.
a total disaster. No one can shoot there because the baskets are hung in a weird way. But this is one thing I did like, was that dump is called Cameron Indoor. And the winning shot was made by someone named Cameron McGusty.
Yes.
So that I definitely liked about it.
A senior, by the way, very good player, senior. But believe it or not, Isaiah Wong is the guy on that team. In fact, he applied for the NBA draft last year, and of course he came back. But he's certainly the player on that team. If anyone has NBA potential, it's probably going to be him. And he only came back to help his draft status, this season. So that was a good deal when he contributed as well. But like you're saying, it was pretty much the last shot. Duke had their last shot, they missed, but Cameron McGusty, he was the guy that made it all happen. And by the way, Paolo Banchero, he's the freshman forward that came from Seattle, who was the number 1, number 2, depending on who you believe, play in high school basketball. He certainly is making a case for being the number 1 pick overall in the NBA draft this summer.
I'd pick him. I mean, who's his competition? Chet Holmgren? I mean, Chet Holmgren has, he's got a great basketball body. He's got great potential, but he's a long way from reaching it. Whereas you look at a guy like Paolo, and he's, 6'10"? He's already 250 pounds. He's NBA ready. So I would definitely, choose him over Holmgren.
And I'll go back to these Canes, a 9-game winning streak now. They knocked off the number 2 team in the country. They're undefeated in the ACC, and they're still not ranked in the top 25. And I know they had 2 losses that they probably shouldn't have had, UCF and Dayton. This isn't the undefeated Dayton from a couple of seasons ago, but they did lose to Alabama, which I still don't think is a very good team in terms of one of these top teams in the country, but they just happened to be there, and they lost to them as well. So, I mean, I still don't see any reason why the Canes should not be in the top 25. And
it could be worse. They could have lost. They could have lost to Texas Southern.
Yeah, I mean, if you're a Gator fan, you know all about it, by the way. In fact, if you're an Oregon Ducks fan, you know all about it because Texas Southern did the same to them back in 2018. Incidentally, it happened when Bull had just gotten injured and Texas Southern rolled into town and won the game, which is surprise, surprise, but it's not their first rodeo beating up on these so-called Power 5 teams. And that takes me to the HBCUs. This is college basketball, of course. HBCUs, historically black colleges and universities. Is it a better option? All of the sudden, it seems like a lot of big name players, both in football and basketball, are interested in HBCUs. Why is that now?
Well, I mean, first of all, maybe this is after that they got onto it, but the big story is this Travis Hunter, who was supposed to go to FSU and who's now going to Jackson State, which as a Florida fan, obviously I'm for that. Send as many of those top prospects as you can, away from FSU. I'm all for that. But I think you asked the question of like, is some of this dealing with wokeness? And I think a lot of it is. A lot of people, you were talking about, a lot of people are singing the praises of the HBCUs, and a lot of those people didn't go to HBCUs.
Exactly. And so that's exactly what yeah.
There's a lot of that going on, but then again, there are a lot of people who are putting their money where their mouth is. There are a lot of pro athletes that are coaching now at these HBCUs. So, I mean, that's one place where they've substantively, gotten a lot better.
Yeah, Magic Johnson, he's put money into the Grambling program. I covered HBCU sports for several years, so I know exactly how it's been going and how things have been. You go to some of these facilities and they aren't the best facilities. There's an influx of money coming in, whether it's from the government when Trump had sent money to HBCUs, and now you have corporations jumping on board. And now as far as sports goes, it's the NIL, name, image, and likeness. It's bringing money to these schools and giving exposure. Deion Sanders definitely did his thing in terms of recruiting for football, getting Travis Hunter, the number 1 player in the entire country. And right now, he's gotten commitments from people who've turned down the Canes and turned down Florida and now going to Jackson State or even other HBCUs. And to be even more interesting,
turn down Florida?
Why wouldn't they? I mean,
he's got to stop that. Yeah.
Which bowl game were they in this year?
Thing off. Just stick to the Knowles and the Canes. That's who you want.
You know what? It's
I'm on your side.
Whether it's a fad or not, I don't know, but it seems like, at least while it's burning right now, whether the wokeness has touched other people, these kids are legitimately considering it, and some of them are pulling the trigger. And I mean, you know, right now, Jackson State has more 5- and 4-star players than some of the Power 5 teams. Arizona State in particular, they have more 4- and 5-star players in this signing period right now, although the signing day officially, this early signing day officially will be the first Wednesday of February, as it always has been. You know, they changed it a couple of years ago, early signing period. But he certainly has opened the door for this, and it started having these younger kids, these star players, even before Deion, thinking about HBCUs. Bronny James, LeBron James' son, he mentioned an HBCU. Mikey Williams, one of the most popular high school players, he's mentioned giving HBCU some consideration. Now, whether it's true or not, or whether he's going to pull the trigger, is to be determined. But the fact that they're even mentioning this, I think it helps around, the buzz is bringing others in. McCurr, I guess, he was a 5-star center coming out. He was a center. He went to Howard University, an HBCU. He got injured 2 games in. Now he's overseas playing, but he still pulled the trigger, and he still came to the school.
And let's talk about some of the coaches they've got. They've got Reggie Theus at Bethune-Cookman. They've got Hugh Jackson at Grambling. They've got Eddie George at Tennessee State. Now, I know Doug Gottlieb has criticized the move by Travis Hunter, and he got a lot of crap for it. But one of the things he pointed out, that even though you have this, great coach and great person, Eddie George there at Tennessee State, there was a player, Master P's son was playing there, and apparently he got injured. He didn't feel like he was getting, first-rate health care. And so I think he pulled him out of there. So even though there's a lot of money coming in, there's a lot of good coaches, some of the support, I mean, you could call it facilities, and you know that stuff better than me. But yeah, if it's your son there and you don't feel like he's getting the right health care, you're going to pull him out. So, I mean, it looks like they're making a lot of progress. Is it sustainable? We'll see.
Those are the things you can do in the dark. The light is on these HBCUs now. So the people who would take money in the past and not do the right things by it, they are now forced to do the right thing by it, because almost every dollar is being recorded in front of a camera, in front of a national audience. And people will, especially the people who think these players shouldn't go there to begin with, these people will hold them accountable for things getting better, or if they go backwards, or even if they stagnate. They expect things to get better. I mean, Shaq's son, his second son, Shakur, he's at Texas Southern right now. So, and you know what? It's not always the wokeness. This is one of those legacy things. Johnny Jones, who coaches at Texas Southern right now, he was Shaq's assistant coach with Dale Brown when he was playing. So now that he's at Texas Southern, well, his son is there. So it's more of a legacy thing than just, this is a fad thing that's happening. So, you may have more of those kinds of people. Chris Paul, he really supports HBCUs. Now, why didn't he go himself? Did it for business reasons, and it's obvious. So now he's on board, better late than never, and they're funding these corporately, and the face of these players, they're talking about that, and it's bringing it to the attention of kids who are easily influenced by these star players. Let's not act like these HBCUs in the past haven't put out quality players. I mean, Tennessee State, who you just mentioned, Anthony Mason from the Knicks played for Tennessee State. He played with Charles Oakley, by the way, another HBCU product from Virginia Union. So we're talking about top players going to these schools. Ben Wallace, went to HBCU. All of these teams and all of these players from the past, they took the hard route, and the NBA will find you if you're that great. Earl the Pro Monroe, Winston-Salem State, the same school as Stephen A. Smith. And in fact, right now, still to this day, the earliest draft pick in HBCU history as the number 2 pick when he went to the Baltimore Bullets back in the day. So, I mean, the list goes on. And of course, the greatest of them all, in my opinion, and I think it's pretty much a consensus, Willis Reed went to Grambling. Not only basketball is a great thing, Eddie Robinson as a football coach, he went to great Grambling. So we've seen this thing before. This isn't anything new.
Doug Williams.
Doug Williams as a football guy. As far as look, I've always talked about finances when it had come to HBCUs. You know, I've been on several HBCU campuses. Now you can start seeing the growth. You go to FAMU, you can see the growth in the building. You go out to North Carolina A&T, you see the buildings that are being built for the students. In fact, a $75 million residential is being built at Tennessee State right now. That money's coming in and they're doing the right thing. The facilities are benefiting and it's going to help their bottom line, which is sports, as we look forward.
Now, what's thought of is being a big equalizer is the name, image, and likeness. But doesn't that money comes in on like merchandising and stuff like that? And one of the issues that Gottlieb raised was, and I don't think he knew as much as you knew in terms of how many people are actually coming to Jackson State. But I mean, how many people, I guess the question is, how much exposure are you going to get at an HBCU enough to generate, you know, that money through merchandising? You might understand name, image, and likeness better than I do.
Well, we're in social media right now, and things explode because of social media. And the more of these top players that come, look, why was Deion Sanders getting a lot of attention even before he started winning this year? Because he's Deion Sanders. People tuned in because he was Deion Sanders. The Celebration Bowl had over 40,000 people show up because it was Deion Sanders and Jackson State playing in the game. So when these top players show up to these high schools, the corporations will follow. When they see that there is finally quality football on a consistent basis, they will follow. If they see quality basketball being played, they will follow. And that's what social media and now our current landscape provides. You put it out there and they will come.
Are you going to be able to see them on TV though?
Yeah, that's where the corporations come from. They follow the money. And so they will be there. Now, the bigger schools are going to still do what they do. But right now, as it stands, as long as you're bringing in this type of talent, the people will come. The televisions will want to show where the people are. They want to show the players to the people who are following. And this is what they're going to do. And on that note, we've put so much into about a half hour of time. And it's time to go with our 5th episode of Yo Trav's Matt Ballin. I hope you enjoyed it because I enjoyed doing it along with Scott Gutchie this time around. So stay tuned, stay up, and wait for the alarm if you subscribe to our channel because number 6 is coming right at you. For Yo Trav, that's Scott Gutchie. We're signing off.
Peace out.